So I have very dumb question actually.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, sure.
so so looking at today's geographical map of India, or in Indian, like when we look at British India, when we consider
Right.
Pakistan, today's India and Bangladesh, uh, at that time, what was ancient India according to today's geographical map? Did it include parts in Afghanistan, today's Afghanistan? Did it include parts
Yes.
in Mongolia? Um,
No. So basically, different empires either extended or contracted
hmm,
the Indian geographic map.
hmm,
Right. Now, for example, these Mahajanapadas. These extended from Afghanistan, which was the state of Gandhara,
hmm,
all the way down to the Deccan, which was the state of Avanti.
hmm,
And in the east, it was Magad and Ashmaka, which was there on this side, which was around Bangladesh,
hmm,
um, Bay of Bengal, maybe going up to Assam. That was pretty much the geography around them. When the Indo-Greeks came in, which is basically when the Greeks came in, then you had the Seleucid Empire coming up. The Mauryan Empire, took power over there and started growing out. Then it extended a little bit beyond what Gandhara's borders were. Then after that, you had the Kushana Empire coming in. Now, the Kushanas were basically Central Asian nomadic tribes. Because of them, what could be considered the Indian this extended all the way up to Kazakhstan into central, maybe parts of China as well,
hmm,
along with parts of Kashmir, Punjab. That was basically what the Kushana Empire extended into. Once you come to the like Ghaznavi and Ghori, you have again the same story repeating where they came from Central Asia, invaded again. So each empire either added or subtracted from what our geographic this was. So that's the interesting thing.
Yeah, one
Most of our
very
empires
interesting thing
actually,
is
yeah,
how did they cross the Karakoram? How did they cross? Because the Silk Route passes through the Karakoram Pass. That's not an easy place to traverse,
it isn't.
even with cars today. Because I have been to Ladakh and all, and those roads are treacherous. And imagine, thousands of years ago, these guys used to go on camels, on horseback, maybe walking. Like, how did they traverse
So
those
there was
altitudes?
so basically they it's pretty interesting. They had trade routes and small settlements. For example, in Pakistan, approximately, you had the small town of Sutta Kendor. This was around the time of the Harappan civilization. That one thing was a trade. That one tiny little insignificant settlement was extremely crucial to trade for the Harappan civilization.
Hmm.
And the thing is, these people specialized in those routes. So the same way how we have harbor pilots who guide the ships into the harbor, you basically had land pilots at that time
They're like the
who would
Sherpas,
basically
na? If you go,
kind of like the Sherpas. Yes, thank you. Kind of like the Sherpas who would basically say ki, chalo, we'll guide you, and they would take a small payment for it.
Hmm.
So the thing is, these outposts were not cities, but they were still extremely crucial for trade to happen. And as we will continue, and when we go to the whole Roman thing with India, I will explain to you more about how even a small island off the coast of Africa played an extremely important role for the ships to come into India.
Hmm.
That small, insignificant island was the most important for the trade of ships,
Hmm.
for trading ships to come from Rome to India. One tiny, insignificant island is all it took. And that is the thing. It is the smallest, those smallest links that made the chain.
Hmm.
And that is why my respect for these people, especially not just ancient Indians, in general, ancient people, is so immense. Because at a time when they had no technology, they had no nothing, it was sheer grit that they used to get around life and to get around solutions
Hmm.
that would, otherwise hinder people.
They're quite
I mean, today we
innovative that
can't,
way. Like even if you think about
very
how zinc
innovative.
was how zinc was refined, the way we came up with a solution was pretty.
Was impressive.
It was a simple
Can you
solution,
imagine?
but it revolutionized the world.
Can you imagine in Magad, right?
Hmm.
They were one of the first to start using iron weapons.
Hmm.
Imagine what was going through those people's heads. They were like, अच्छा copper से कुछ नहीं हो रहा है. This seems harder than copper and bronze. What if we can use it as a weapon instead?
Not only
And
that,
to come up with those technologies
fun fact
to
of
smelt that iron.
technology.
Yeah.
In ancient India, they had also developed a certain way of making a form of steel which does not rust easily. There's one in, if you go to the Qutub Minar complex, that's a very famous one. There's one in South India also. When Adi Shankaracharya had come, they had built one to welcome him. And those things haven't rusted today. And if you look at our house car door fittings, they rust today. So I mean, and I was watching this one documentary on them trying to figure out how they did this. We still don't know what exactly did they do to the iron to make it rust proof. You can make it steel,
It's not
but
only
steel
that.
will still, to some extent, corrode.
It's not only that. For example, you have the whole Damascus steel that was used in Persia and Turkey and so on. We still don't have a clue as to how the hell were they able to make such a steel. Come on, folding one brick of steel hundreds of times over to get the pattern and to make a sword so strong that nothing can break it. Impressive. And it's lost to time. We have no idea how how these guys managed to really come up with these technologies. And the thing is, a lot of these tales that were lost to time, we are just starting to learn them today, now. And to understand where we are today, to understand in general how the world has come up around us, from our phones to the buildings to the laptops that we're just sitting on and using, we need to understand how we evolved as people back then, because somewhere at least थोड़ा तो ingenuity उनका हम में भी आया है.
You can't run without crawling first.
Exactly. And they did the difficult part of crawling. Now that was through mountains, through rivers, through everything, they crawled. But at least that's helping us to run today.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that.
So what really happened with today, like today's Pakistan? We know there was Harappa and the Indus Valley civilization and all of that. What really happened to it? Where did it? What happened to Harappa? Like when we see today the ruins there, what exactly happened?
See, many researchers, I'm no archaeologist, just saying. I'm a student of ancient India. I'm reading what archaeologists are saying. But the thing is that archaeologists are not really sure about what happened. But one thing is certain is there was no Aryan invasion. There was no nothing. Because if there was an Aryan invasion, we would have seen at least some dead bodies, like skeletons with damage, war damage, maybe some weapons somewhere. We haven't found any of that. So the whole Aryan invasion, Harappa
Even if
destroyed,
they would have invaded,
that
they would
theory
have
is
at least
gone.
settled and have left their mark of their civilization.
Exactly. There is no evidence of a large scale war that has happened where Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were. No evidence of it. See, it was a lot of imperial ideas that came in at that time. So it was honestly thought that, the only reason why someone will abandon a place is because of war. That's not necessarily true. There's so many things that
Could
really
have natural
against it.
calamities.
Is floods a possibility? Although they had a very good drainage system and their all of that as well.
So the interesting theory that is there was that this is just starting to come out. It's a very new theory. But around 4,000 years ago, approximately when the Harappan civilization really began its decline, you had something known as the Meghalayan age, right? This was discovered through a stalagmite in a cave in Meghalaya. It showed that there was a lot of immense climatic change that happened around that time.
Hmm.
There would be droughts, there would be floods, there would be a lot of different things.
Hmm.
Now, why would someone leave Mohenjo-daro in a rush? Maybe the river changed course all of a sudden and flooded. That's why people left. Why do you think great cities like, Harappa would abandon or Lothal were abandoned?
Mm.
The rivers stopped flowing. There was no access to the sea. Lothal, the port, pretty much became a dead town.
Hmm.
Harappa may have had immense grasslands at that point. But then maybe those grasslands died out
Hmm.
due to a drought. There was no food for the people of Harappa left. So they started migrating. And one of the theories that has been put forward is that these Harappans basically got up from the Indus Valley, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, and all of this, and moved to what was at that time the best place for them to shift to, the Indo-Gangetic Plain. So often, a lot of one of these ideas that about the shift of Harappans to the Indo-Gangetic Plain is that there are symbolisms of what Hindu culture we have in Harappan seals and everything, and what maybe that has come down through
Hmm.
migration and settling down in the Gangetic on the banks of the Ganga in the Gangetic Plain,
I have one
So,
and
thing
that
of
is
so
what
do
has
we?
come
So
through
is that?
in our Hinduism. This
So do we probably? So does that mean that Harappa is probably or Harappa or that part of West ancient India is the origin of Hinduism?
I can't say for certainty. It may
Yeah,
be,
we have one question
maybe not.
regarding the Harappans. Is if they
Yes.
came into the Indo-Gangetic Plain, shouldn't their language have some roots into Indic languages? Because theirs is undeciphered. And if it is similar to what we have today, at least Sanskrit, or it has some similar to some language which was there before Sanskrit for that matter, then we can at least decipher that or at least find evidence of that in any language over here. Because a lot of
I've,
studies happen based on languages also, right? You see, once
it's true.
people intermingle, their languages change, and you can
That's very
record
much true.
who intermingle,
Languages evolve, Ryan, over a period of
and then
time.
you can actually tell
For example,
how they evolved. Came.
you can make out. But the thing is, that's what there are these missing links that are making people say कि yeah, it makes sense why they migrated, but हुआ कि नहीं, right? But for example, I'll tell you, there are evidences that do point to this. Maybe this migration did happen. There are evidences that say it may not have happened. For example, ancient Sumerian. If it wasn't for the Rosetta Stone, we wouldn't have known what the hell ancient Sumerian even looked like. But yet, it is at the lands of Sumer that we have Israel, we have Arabic, we have all of these great languages. Using what Rahil just said, we should have been able to backtrack from Arabic to Sumerian. We weren't able to. We needed a Rosetta Stone to do that. So, maybe we are missing a Rosetta Stone for India to try and link Sanskrit to Harappan languages.
Yeah.
But again, this is all theory. This is all brain farts that are going on over here. Till the point that we find proper archaeological evidence saying that yes, this happened, everything is just a theory. And it should be treated as such.
Mhm.
Now, which theory you conform to is something that you should be doing by reading all the different ideas out there and coming up with what you feel is the best. That's pretty much what I've done for my ideas on how Harappa may have
Mhm.
been decolonized, if you will.